Just let people trickle in.
All right. I think we did it that time. First try.
First try.
Let's see.
Let me see if I get a notification telling me to join the stream. Oh, I'm on the wrong.
Hui. For those watching live, we will wait 5 minutes before we start getting into real conversation. So feel free to skip ahead if you're watching. Sorry, if you're watching this recorded, is what I meant to say. Feel free to skip ahead to about the 5 minute mark, where we'll kind of engage. But let us know how the audio is. Dallin, of course, will be scooting closer when we're ready.
Just getting the chat ready.
Other than that, we can just talk about other stuff, not questions from the community.
I think I have to keep my laptop on me.
Yeah.
It's a little too far away.
How's it going, man?
It's good.
I wonder if people watching this think that you're way taller than me.
They might. I mean, look. It looks like I'm 6'2".
I know.
I am.
Awesome.
I am 5'8" on a good day, 5'7" on an average day. So Colby definitely is a lot taller than me.
I'm 6'1" and shrinking. So my now 17-year-old son, Knox, he just had a birthday last week. He passed me officially.
That's a big day.
That was a big day.
Was it emasculating or was it
no,
good for you?
I think I was resisting it for a while. I was like, you're not going to be taller than me.
Yeah.
You're not going to be taller than me. And then he passed me and I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Kids need to move past their parents,
Exactly.
right? So
that's what we hope for.
Yeah, it was good.
It's the whole purpose of parenting. Well, not the whole purpose, but
Are we live? Are we getting
We
comments?
are live. If it makes you feel any better, I'm 5'4". That doesn't make me feel better. That makes me feel like
only if you
at least
were
we
here.
have a club.
If you were here,
Yeah.
Then
Short Kings and Queens Club.
All right, I'm gonna lower this so I stop looking at myself.
Oh yeah, good idea.
So
what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Just got back from an awesome vacation. We've talked about that. That was a lot of fun. And I'm just up to my eyeballs in the new player's handbook. And I mean, again, we've talked about it, but the last few days, it's felt like I've been frustrated because I felt like this was something that I was super excited about. And it's felt more like a job than it has felt fun.
Yeah.
To me. And that bums me out. And I think a big part of the reason, and you know what, you guys weigh in on this. Let me know your thoughts. My plan up until maybe yesterday was I'm going to put out 10 videos, and Dallin's just no.
I don't think there's enough time.
I'm going to have to get divorced. I'm going to do so many videos, and it's basically going to just cover every single difference between 2014 and 2024. And I'm going to do it in a series, right? I'm going to talk about the classes and the subclasses, and then I'm going to talk about the feats, and then I'm going to talk about the spells, and then I'm going to talk about the races, species, and then I'm going to talk about all the other rules that haven't been covered by any of those things that I talked about,
Yeah.
And it's so much. And it got to the point where I was like, ooh, I want to read more of the new PHB that I haven't read yet. But every time I opened up the document, I was like, I better take notes on this. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and it was that's not as fun as just
that's homework.
Reading it and being excited about stuff, right? So I finished my script for all the differences between the classes and the subclasses. And basically it's about 4 videos worth of content. Maybe 3, depending on how fast I can talk. And that was just so much stuff. And maybe, just maybe, I leave, all of that, like, hey, let's do a deep dive on all the rules analysis and tell you about everything that's changing. Maybe I leave that for the Treant monks and the dungeon dudes of the world, right?
Yeah.
Where that's kind of already their niche.
Sure.
And just like dive into character builds, which is what I love. And that, like, thinking about that gets me excited. Thinking about writing a script for, like, how, like, about all of the updates to, like, the rules glossary does not sound fun to me, right?
Yeah. I mean, pursue what you find fun. Life is short, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's what I would say. But at the same time, it's hard to just leave such juicy content on the table. Yeah. So I get the predicament.
I think in the end, what I'm probably going to do, and feel free to opine and advise. You guys are the platinums. You're my small council.
Does that make me Hand of the King?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. This is so much cooler now.
Wait, does that make me king?
I guess so.
That feels cool. Except for all the kings in Game of Thrones die a horrible, miserable death, so maybe that's not a good thing to be.
And the hands usually get poisoned.
That's true.
So.
That's true. Anyways, what was I saying? So my plan is right now. I mean, I've already written the script out, and like knowing the changes for classes and subclasses is maybe the single most important thing for like me and I think my audience to like know and really kind of have a grasp on before we start diving into character builds. And so I think I'm still gonna probably release that.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at your play.
You're
just
reading
chat.
comments.
Someone said you can be queen.
Okay, that's right. That works. I'll be Cersei. What was I saying? Yeah, I think I'm still gonna release that. Well, it was gonna be a series of videos.
Sure.
But I think I'm just gonna do one massive, like, all of the changes to the classes and the subclasses in a single drop.
One big compendium.
Like the minute the embargo drops, I'm like, that video's going live. So it'll be like a one-stop shop for everything that you want to know about how the classes and subclasses have changed. And then after that, I think I'm just going to start doing character builds. And I'm going to let Kelly and Monty and Chris and Will and every other, content creator out there that focuses on kind of rules and, all that kind of stuff to cover how all of the spells have changed and how all the feats are different and the different races and species and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then for me, like, as I do a character build, I'll be like, this is the species we're going to choose, and here's how it's different. You know what I mean? Or we're going to take this feat, and this is why, because it's changed from 2014, and maybe kind of do that for a few months, right?
Sure.
To kind of help people get comfortable with the new stuff.
Well, let's go to the Platinums, see what they have to say.
Yeah, what does the small council have to say?
So the small council is saying, I hope you stop and take a moment to enjoy the stuff you're working on. And that's good advice.
I could do a little better at that right now, for sure.
Then we've got, let's see, how did they manage to make the Ranger class worse? Cries.
I don't think they have, personally, but there are things about it that they didn't change that I wish they would have. I'll leave it at that.
That's going to be a long video, even for D4.
It's going to be at least 3 hours long, I think. And so, for that reason, maybe I'll give you guys a warning now. I think I'm going to take the week before off. So I'll let you guys know. I mean, what can I say and what can't I say? I don't know what I can and can't say.
That's true.
Basically, I'll just say this. I don't even know if I can say that.
There's landmines everywhere.
Yeah,
don't step on one.
I'm planning on taking a week off of videos because I actually didn't. When I went on vacation, I ended up recording a video while I was on vacation, and so I never even missed a week, right?
Yeah.
I'm planning on taking a week off. There's going to be no release one of these weeks while I both record like multiple hours worth of content and maybe give you more time to edit, maybe even step in and help you edit.
That's a 3+ hour video.
Yeah,
that's gonna be
so that we can kind of have a big, huge, massive drop the minute that it becomes available for me to drop it. Yeah. Okay, sorry. What else?
Let's see. We say stick with character builds, but sprinkle in differences in rules and flat class features.
Yeah.
Then we've got, let's see. Not sure which gained by a compare and contrast. Maybe just talk on the new PHB with the occasional aside if the change is too drastic.
Sure.
Let's see. What else do we got here? I'd love to watch it and hear your input. Maybe do it as a collab with someone like Ted from Nerd Immersion. Love to see the two of you together.
Yeah, I have talked I've talked with Chris, I've talked with the Dungeon Dudes about maybe doing some sort of like largely unscripted, just kind of off the cuff convo about like what are your favorite changes and then maybe what are your least favorite changes or something like that. Like maybe I do one of those with the Dungeon Dudes and one with Chris, something like that. Yeah. Where, it's not as much work for us to like prep.
Sure.
We can just sort of like hit record and just banter and just shoot the shiz and, kind of complain or praise or whatever. And I think that's interesting for most of our viewers to be kind of like just hear our take on things, I guess. Anyways, yeah. But I haven't, you know what? I've never met, no, I take that back. I've met Ted once at Gen Con last year. But it was a fairly brief conversation, and we've never really talked other than that. But yeah, maybe I should reach out and maybe we could do something. Or any other number. I mean, there's plenty, right? Will from D&D Shorts is great, and like lots of other people who I've never really worked with much. Yeah.
What if you did a primer like D&D 101, but for 2024? I think that would kind of be like... Well, I mean, that's tough, because... It's really not a new version of the game, right? So it's not like a primer to D&D so much. That
D&D U series that I did, D&D University, that took a long time.
I remember.
To write it. And then, did you edit those for me? Or did I? Because you did a little bit of editing for me at the very beginning, and then we decided to stop.
I can't remember.
I think you might have been editing.
One that I edited.
I think you might have been editing those for me.
Yeah.
And that was just a lot because at the time I was working a full-time job and I was still putting out weekly build videos.
Right.
And then I was trying to do the D&D U stuff. And I remember getting through that and just being like, I'm never doing that again. That was a lot of work. Or it felt like I was spent. And it hasn't proven to be a particularly like great resource for a vast number of people. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think it's pretty good as far as for newbies.
Yeah.
But of course,
unfortunately, the algorithm like doesn't take into account how hard you worked on a video, and that's the worst thing about YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Have you heard of YouTuber named Roll With Us DMs? They're my DM and they watch your stuff. We'll have to check them out.
I'll be honest. I don't actually consume a lot of YouTube content. I make a lot of YouTube content, or a lot. I don't know, but I make YouTube content, and I don't consume much. I don't even watch like every video from most of the people that I subscribe to. I watch a lot of Chris's stuff, a lot of the Dungeon Dude stuff. Other than that, it's like hit and miss for a few others, and that's about it. And yeah, not even everything that either of those guys do. So anyways, what else we got?
We've got recommend splitting the 3-hour video into 3 1-hour videos. But then we've got a follow-up to that says, I don't think parts 2 and 3 would be watched except for maybe the golds.
Yes.
And I think that's
the big problem. Every time I've done a multi-part video series, part 1 does really well, parts 2 and 3 fall by the wayside. And I think there's a number of issues. One, if I do a 3-parter, let's say, and I go, okay, part 1 is barbarians, bards, clerics, and druids, right? And part 2 is fighters, monks, paladins, and rangers, and part 3 is, then the day it drops, those 4 classes I cover, and people that are excited about those 4 classes watch. And then by the time I get the part 2 out, they've probably got the information that they wanted from somewhere else, and I captured a smaller audience. You know what I mean? So even though a 3-hour video is a lot, I think it has the potential to like be good evergreen content and just be kind of like a resource that people can potentially come back to, you know, over and over. Maybe they just are like, you know what remind me, like, what happened with fighters? Okay, I'm just gonna watch this little fighter bit. Great, that's all I need. But maybe a month from now, or 3 months from now, or 6 months from now, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'm gonna do a paladin. Like, I need to remember like all the things that changed from 2014.
Right.
I don't know. That's my hope.
And if the audience is anything like me and has like insomnia and they need like a video to fall asleep
there
to
you go.
at night, right?
3 hours.
3 hours. You put it
perfect.
on, you listen to something you're super interested in, and you just kind of drift off, and then you wake up. You're like, where was I? There, we were on this part. Okay.
Until
start from there.
All of a sudden, in the middle of the video, they're just about to fall asleep, and they go, damage report. And then they come awake, and they're like, whoa.
Wow, what was that? Yeah. That's the reason there's no more beeps in the outtakes anymore.
In the outtakes.
Because there was a lot of complaints that it was too jarring in the middle of the night.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, let's get into some questions here from the chat. We'll start with chat.
Sure.
Very excited to see where this goes. I'm curious, does the 24 Player's Handbook allow for the TCE subclasses too? Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Or are they only the 4 base classes?
Right. So here's, I actually had a 2-hour long conversation with Kelly and Monty this morning from the Dungeon Dudes, and we were just talking about all the Player's Handbook stuff, and they feel the exact same way as I know Chris Treant Monk feels, and pretty much anybody else that I've talked to feels, and it's this. You know, if you're using the 2024 handbook, right, then it's all or nothing. Like, if you're using any part of the 2024 handbook, you're using everything in the 2024 handbook. And if you're using the 2024 handbook, then anything that is updated by the 2024 handbook, whether it's a species, a feat, a spell, a class, a subclass, a background, whatever, if it gets a rule, like grappling rules, whatever, if it gets updated by the 2024 handbook, then that's what you use. And if it is not in the player's handbook, but is discussed in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, for example, then you can use it, right? As long as it doesn't conflict with something that's in the 20... I don't know why I'm opening the book. Like, I'm going to read something.
Like this one,
for
example here. The one that I have prepared.
So if it exists in a previous 5e book and it is not updated by the player's handbook, then it's free game. And I'm 100% sure that is Wizards of the Coast intent. Now, not all tables will agree with that. Not all tables will use that. And for that matter, there will be things that conflict, right? And there's going to be questions about, well, but if I use this from 2024, then it doesn't work with that because whatever.
Right.
And, you know, I'm sure that Jeremy Crawford will have a very active Twitter for years to come. And they'll probably have Sage Advice compendiums, you know what I mean? Which is fine. And otherwise, you know, DM's just going to have to make a ruling. But I don't think there's a ton of conflicts. And in fact, in the new PHB, I will say that they actually do identify a couple of times that I can think of where it's like, okay, this actually conflicts with something, you know, from previous book. And in that case, like, here's how you're supposed to do it.
That's nice.
So, yeah. So, so like, for example, I'm still planning on using Elven Accuracy as a feat option, right? I probably shouldn't have said that, because by saying that, I'm insinuating that it's not in the new player's handbook. Please don't quote me on that. Maybe it is, and I just forgot, or I missed it when I was looking over the player's handbook. But yeah, I'm still planning on using feats, spells,
sure,
subclass options from old books that don't show up in the new PHB, because it's supposed to be backwards compatible, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to another question. Would you do a subscriber-only campaign or one-shot? It's a big. That's like a big like bombshell question almost. Like there's a lot of like underlying stuff.
I love the idea. It's the time. I don't know how Chris does it. Treant Monk. He, for those who maybe don't know, he has a Patreon level at which you play a one shot with him every month.
Wow. On top of the content.
All the stuff that he does. I know how he does it. He doesn't have kids. That's how he does it. And he probably works more than I do. You know what I mean? Like he probably puts more time in than I do. I'd be willing to bet. So I like the idea. I just have a hard time imagining having the time, or I should say being willing to take the time away from my family. I try to prioritize them, and I try to like leave work at 5 and like be done. Yeah. You know what I mean? And for that reason, we don't even play D&D every week anymore.
No,
we play once. We were supposed to play once a month. We play once a quarter. Is what what it is right now.
It's so sad.
Hopefully we'll get back on track to once a month. So, I'm open to the idea. Maybe I create a new tier and do something like that.
Maybe like a subscriber like celebration checkpoint or something.
Or maybe it's only like once a quarter or once a year. Once a month is hard to imagine. And then the problem too is like I could do it once a month. But like what if I have 20 people that want to sign up at that level? I'm like, I don't know what to do. So yeah, it's tough.
Which actually kind of ties into the next question from the chat here. Do you like DMing?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Why do a one shot if
no?
If you don't even like DMing?
I should say, I mean, to be fair, I have actually only DM'd once. Well, okay. I've DM'd twice. The first time, I was 14 years old, and my friends made my life miserable as a DM. Our at the time, always DM, just was constantly, like, he wouldn't let me talk. He was constantly correcting me. He was constantly just like, it was miserable. So I didn't do it. And maybe that soured me on the experience, and I haven't really tried since. Sure. The only other time that I've done it is I ran the, what's the adventure that comes in the Essentials kit? The
Dragonspire.
Yes.
Icespire Peak, something like that.
That one. I ran that for my brother, his son, and my son. But we never finished. We got maybe halfway through, and then our kids, sadly, just weren't super interested in it. They were mildly interested, but they weren't loving it, and so they weren't prioritizing it. And I was like, well, I'm kind of doing this for them. If they don't love it, then like I'm not really going to do it anymore. And I liked it okay, but I feel like I don't think I perform very well under pressure. And I think I feel a lot of pressure whenever I sit in that DM role, in that chair. And it's like I almost I freeze up or something. I've had people who have said, hey, you should do like a live stream and do like a character build where like chat is like suggesting things to do or whatever, and or like a panel at a con where you like do a character build like live with and I am just like, no, I don't think I would do that. I don't think I would do
not
well.
Interested.
So yeah, that said, like I feel like I'm a pretty good role player.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thank you. I really can get into character and just like own like my character and think fast and all that kind of stuff. But like I only have this one person to like keep track of. When it's like multiple characters and a whole world and plot and trying to guide or not, depending on your style, you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. I get like a little, I don't think I could do that, or I don't want to anyways. You know what I mean? Yeah.
At the end of every session I've ever DM'd, on my drive home, I'm always like, oh, I forgot to say this, or I didn't bring this up the way that I wanted to, or like I wish I would have done X. I think it's just inevitable as a DM. Like there's so much to manage, and you're trying to craft a fun experience.
Yeah.
And like that should be the main point. It's like,
Sure.
is everybody,
Is everybody
having
having
fun?
fun? Yeah.
And as long as that's met, I think it's okay. You can sort of let all the other things to the side, but it's really hard as a person who's a creative and is like wanting to tell the best story and do the best thing to just let go of that. So I totally understand when people are like, I don't want to DM, and that's the reason.
Sure.
I totally get that.
Sure. I will say, like, you are a fabulous DM. Like, no, for reals. Like, I would say, and you know, anybody who I have had as a DM in 5e has been great. Corey is fantastic. Preston does a great job. I think maybe the closest I ever got to crying was like in one of your sessions, and like the most like goosebumps that I've ever had. You know what I mean? It's just like, dude, that was so awesome. You know, like, yeah, you're fantastic.
Thank you.
So don't beat yourself up on the drive home, because you're a great world builder and storyteller.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so chat, we got, who's your favorite character from Forgotten Realms? That's kind of like, unless you're like really versed in the lore, I think a lot of players just go like either homebrew or just what's in their little adventure, right?
Yeah, I will admit, I never read any of the Forgotten Realms novels, right? I was way into Dragonlance, but that's not Forgotten Realms. So yeah, like it's hard for me to even like point to a character. I would say like, oh, it's got to be Raistlin, but like he's not Forgotten Realms. He's Kryn. I never read like the Drizzt books. So yeah, like I can point to like Sword Coast characters that are from adventures that I'm a fan of. I think for me it would be, well, and I can't even remember his name now because, like I say, I don't perform well under pressure. What's his name? The
Gauntlet.
Yes.
The fist.
Helm. The Order of
the Gauntlet, and his name is
He's a
escaping
paladin.
me too. He's a paladin. Yeah.
And in our version, in our game of the Rise of Tiamat, he actually dies. But then
I'm Googling it
we came. He showed up later in a different adventure. What's that guy's name? I feel like there's a B in there somewhere.
I think so.
Yeah, he's my favorite. You can tell how much I love him.
So good. Oh no, this is just telling me the history of the Order of the Gauntlet. It's not telling me the leader. It might have even been homebrew.
I'll bet it's in. No, it wasn't.
Come on, chat, help us out.
Nobody's chatting. It's like right on the tip of my brain. Anyways,
I do remember. I actually bought the Order of the Gauntlet like T-shirt after that session because it was such like a galvanizing like moment for us as a table. I was like, okay, like I gotta get the Order of the Gauntlet.
What was that guy's name? Iron Fist? No, something. Anyways.
Laniverl Strail?
Nope.
I don't think that was it.
That wasn't it. Okay, let's go on and see if
Corel says, reminder, BG3 is a Forgotten Realms, so you could just say like my Tav. That's my favorite character.
Yeah, that's a good point. In that case, Shadowheart? Oh, I'm so vanilla.
You like Shart over what's
all of them? Lae'zel? No, Karlach.
Yeah, it's gotta be Karlach, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways.
Chat says Sturm Brightblade?
Yes.
Was that it?
No, he was from Kryn. No, he's a knight of the Solamnia. Anyways. We'll figure it out at some
We've
point.
got, my favorite is Black Cloak, a.k.a. the Mad Mage. It's a good one. Yeah, Our December, the ring. Remember that? That was pretty cool, too.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over to the Discord questions. And we're starting off with the really big one. So, well, brace yourself here.
Okay, I'm bracing myself.
This is from Dark Prowler, which has a really awesome, cool spelling of their username, by the way. I'm playing in a party with a rogue who is very much into using bonus action hide every round to help get sneak attack. This is a semi-permanent group that has developed from an Adventure League group, so I'm not a friend of the rogue, but I am polite and quiet and let it be since the DM is okay with it. But it has me thinking about how I would DM. How flexible should I be with allowing the hide action in combat to give advantage in attacks? I've always played it more as real-life logical. It seems like seems the spirit of giving advantage is that you catch opponent unaware, but are they really unaware if you were just fighting them?
Sure.
On the other hand, what is the point of having a bonus action hide if it wasn't meant to be used in combat for just this reason?
Yeah.
What do y'all think, and how would you handle it at your table?
Yeah, I think the DM, I mean, the rules are fairly, like, DM heavy when it comes to hiding. The DM essentially determines under what conditions you can hide, right? And so I think if it were me, it'd be like, look, if we're in a forest, maybe we're around some ruins and there's potentially like some columns or pillars or, rocks you can get behind. Or, of course, then there's things that get specified, right? If you're a halfling, you can hide behind somebody who's one size larger than you.
Yeah.
Wood elves get like stuff about hiding, depending on the environment, right? So, yeah, I think I personally would be pretty liberal with it if that's what the rogue really wanted to do, especially keeping in mind that you only get one attack as a rogue, right? Unless you're dual wielding, I suppose, or you've got crossbow expert feat, whatever. And once you make an attack, your hide ends.
Sorry. Archmike gave us the name. It's Ontharr Froom.
Ontharr Froom!
Yes! Thank you.
Nice, Archmike. Thank you.
It was like the fifth option he gave, but that's the one.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
Anyways.
Interrupting you.
And why would we remember that name? That is a crazy name. So the rogues have cunning action for a reason, right? And having advantage on their attacks is super important for sneak attack, for potentially critting, to really make use of that sneak attack. And you only get one attack at advantage if you're hiding, because as soon as you make an attack, you're seen, basically, right? So why not say, look, if it's dark, and it's not that you're surprising them, right? There's a difference, I think, between coming out from hiding to make an attack and catching an enemy surprised, where like they're flat-footed and they lose their turn on the first round of combat. Hiding to me is more like, you're fighting, but you're like, where did that rogue go? And it's like, aha! He like shows up and shivs you in the back. And so you're gonna have advantage because they're like, I just lost sight of you. I know you're there somewhere, but like you could be coming at me from any angle, and I'm not sure, right? I think I'd be pretty liberal.
Exaltia in the chat brings up a good point. Lots of people forget that rules is written. You can't hide in bright light with no cover.
It's true.
And that's true. I think as a DM, if there's like barrels or like half walls or whatever for them to jump into, or like a closet they can hide in or whatever, like sure.
But if you're just in like a
open field,
a grassy field in the middle of the day, unless you have a feature that specifies you can hide, whatever in these certain scenarios, like the halfling, then you're probably not going to be hiding.
Chat says it's just steady aim with style, anyhow.
Right, and thanks to steady aim, right, you could do the same just if you want to give up your movement, unless you're an assassin in the 2024 Player's Handbook, and I can say that.
Oh wait, we can't do that. We can't link.
Here. We can't link live.
Okay. Next question here from Discord from Zanny. Do you honestly actually use / enjoy the products that sponsor some of your videos? I ask because I'm actually enjoying Magic Spoon thanks to you introducing me to it. And I actually have to jump onto this bandwagon too. I now eat Magic Spoon.
Yeah.
Because they sell it at Costco. You can get a big box.
Right. And it's a little cheaper.
It's delicious.
Yeah. It is. So let me say, I don't want to get in trouble. For the most part, yes. There have been some sponsors where I admit, well, I don't know, like some of the bigger corporate ones is kind of who I'm thinking of. Every time, I always will legitimately try something out, right? Sure. And sometimes I'm like, this is cool. And sometimes I'm like, I really like this. I don't think there's ever been anything where I've been like, I'm just like, I'm lying to my audience to make a buck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In fact, I definitely haven't ever felt that way. But I have, been like, look, I'm mostly reading a script here, and I tried this thing out, and I liked it, but it maybe wasn't my favorite thing, right?
Sure.
When it comes to Magic Spoon, I do eat that cereal regularly, and I like it, especially maple waffle. It's my favorite. They have a new flavor out, French toast. It's like a limited time thing.
Ooh.
And I'm curious to try it.
Yeah, you gotta use that code D4 to get your $5 off.
But yeah, I don't eat it every day, but especially if I'm like craving some cereal, but I'm like, you know what? I had a huge lunch, or like I had some dessert after dinner tonight. Like, but I really want some cereal. Then I'll have some Magic Spoon. You know what I mean? Or if it's a low carb day, like if I'm on like a little bit of a stricter like meal plan thing, it's great. So yeah, I do like Magic Spoon. I have several boxes in my pantry right now.
Nice.
And they're yummy.
All right, back to chat. Exaltia says, have you ever rejected a sponsor after trying the product? I think I can recall one, but I don't know if we should name names.
I don't think I'll get in trouble, especially this is such a small, like, private. Manscaped.
That's exactly who came to mind.
Approached me. And that was fairly early, I think. And they actually sent me stuff and said, try this out, and, you know, if you like it, then, you know, do you want to sponsor? Or can we sponsor a video? And I was like, I just don't know if I can get on camera and talk about, like, shaving my undercarriage, like, to my audience and, like, keep a straight face. And I probably wouldn't have had
I like to play D&D with a very clean-shaven undercarriage.
Yeah, I probably could have made it funny, and they would have been fine with it, right? But I think at the time I was just like, I was maybe a little more sensitive. I mean, since then I've done Deal Dash and you know, I don't know, other stuff, right? That is a little more, you know, VPN, NordVPN. I mean, things like that. You know, if they came back to me today, I might consider it. But I'd have to use it and try it. I actually never even used it. I got the stuff and then I re-gifted it as a Christmas present.
Boom. There you go.
And my brother-in-law who got it was like, this is actually a really good gift. Like, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. I told him that it was I told him you know, that I was just re-gifting something.
That's funny.
But it was at a Christmas party. It was like a white elephant thing.
From chat, if all of your characters you've played were the same level and tossed into a fight pit style arena of your choosing, who's coming out the winner?
That is a very timely question, because right now, as most of you probably know, I am working on a script that I'll be recording next week for the Colby Awards. The Colbys, the first annual, maybe last ever, Colby Awards. And I have roped in some special guests to be my award presenters. And so the 3 categories that I'm planning on doing are, let's see, the best, like, concept build, artificially restricted in the name of concept, but that's too hard to say. The most powerful, and I appreciate that that's subjective, and the most fun, which is also very subjective, even more subjective. So who's coming out at what level?
Any level of your choosing. Just says the same level.
If it's level 10...
I mean... someone who's DM'd a couple of your characters, I think Anders is like top of the list for ones that you've played in game. Created on the channel, maybe different, but played in game.
I'm gonna say it would depend on the arena, because if it's big and there's stuff to hide behind, then something like like a good ranged character is probably going to come out on top. So your Gloomstalker builds, your I don't think the cheese grater really works. Burst damage I think is king in PvP, but maybe less so if there's a lot of people. Like in 1v1 for sure, 4v or 2v2 maybe, free for all with like 10 people. Burst damage is like good to take out one guy, but now what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? So yeah, it depends on a lot of things. I'm just gonna say I might go with like the Holy Warrior, who was kind of Anders but paladin instead of fighter. He's barbarian and pally.
Right.
Because they would have better defense, and some burst damage capability.
And still hit like a truck.
Yeah, maybe. But then, but again, unless it's a big, huge area that people can hide behind, right? And then you're gonna want your flamethrower or something like that. So yeah, that is a good question. But yeah, if it's like in my head I'm thinking like a battle royale, like WWE, like like a 20 by 20 cage. Yeah, then it's like some kind of like barbarian, or you like the holy warrior who can like smite, has good defense. They've got or maybe the Oathbreaker Pally, who actually had better defense because they were a shield and a spear build, but they still did good damage, better sustained damage maybe. Had a better charisma score because I think they took a hexblade dip, if I'm not mistaken. So their aura of protection would have been really good, right? Their spells would have been good, but they still did solid damage. Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, great question. Okay, from Corel over on Discord. Now that you've seen more of the 2024 Player's Handbook, what are your early feelings on it? Did they play things too conservatively? Do you think it'll shake up the meta? And I know this is kind of like hard to tread into this area right now where we're sort of in this limbo on what you can say.
I can talk about it. I just can't give reasons for why I think what I think.
Yeah.
Right? And this is also a timely question because we kind of were talking about this at lunch. Mm-hmm. This was the majority of my conversation with Kelly and Monty this morning. How do I say this in less than 15 minutes? I think, how do I say anything in less than 15 minutes?
That's where I was headed.
What's your favorite kind of pizza? Oh, how much time do we have? Okay.
Are anchovies on or off the table?
I think, in general, that damage, once we see 2024 in all of its glory, I think that damage, especially burst damage, but even also sustained damage, is going to be less than what we saw with 2014 rules. And that's for a number of reasons that I can't get into yet. But I think that's true. Also, though, I do think that every class now will potentially, at least, have a lot more that they can do in combat that I think for most players will feel fun because it's diverse, there's variety, there's a lot less of just I hit stuff. You can still do that, right? But there's a lot more potential for everybody being able to bring utility, bring protection capabilities and or control options and or debuffing and or buffing, right? In a way that like the game has the potential at least to become a lot more tactical in combat and more like team, like hey, let's cooperate. Right. I'm going to do this that will help you and you're going to do that will help me, right? Kind of thing. And so even though I think damage across the board is going to be lowered, and I think, again, especially burst damage, I don't know that that's a bad thing for the game. It's going to be sad for me personally
you have to create all new tiers
when my character can't just like kill somebody, like end the combat before it begins, essentially, right? Yeah. Or at least that will be harder to do, and I could be wrong. I haven't done any builds yet other than the assassin, right? But I think it's probably going to be better for the overall health of the game and like combat encounters for everybody at the table. I think there's potential there for combat generally to be more fun. I think it will also be probably, my prediction is that combat encounters might be a little bit longer on average because of the reduced damage that player characters will likely be doing. I think maybe for that reason, DMs might be surprised and be like, oh crap, I just TPK'd my party because I'm used to them just like blowing stuff up and they're not blowing stuff up like they used to. There's going to be exceptions to that, and I will do my damnedest to find them and build around them, right? But yeah, I do that. That's my prediction, I suppose. There are some classes that I think are going to especially shine because they're sort of exceptions to that rule that I have in my head that I think is a rule, that damage is going to be less, and then there will be exceptions, and now suddenly those classes or maybe subclasses or maybe spells or whatever are going to be like, oh, like this is the new Hexblade, or this is the new whatever, right? This is the new 2 levels of fighter, 2 levels of paladin, then take a bunch of warlock or sorcerer or swordsbard levels and just blow everything up. Kind of things. How'd I do?
I think pretty good. Exalted,
Did I answer the question?
I think you answered it as best as you possibly could with having to withhold the information you have to withhold. If that makes sense.
And maybe I'll add this. People worry a lot about the martial caster divide and martial caster divide, and casters are way better. I do think that Wizards has taken steps to narrow that divide. I do think that martials in general are more powerful than they were in 2014. If by power we don't necessarily mean they do more damage, but we mean they can debuff and control, right? Because what makes a wizard so good? It's not
Bajillion
fireball.
spells,
I mean, fireball's great, and it's not disintegration. Disintegration?
Disintegration ray? Ray of disintegration?
No.
Whatever. Disintegrate.
Thank you. I'm saying that wrong. Though those spells have their place.
Sure.
It's Wall of Force and Mass Suggestion and, you know what I mean? Hypnotic Pattern and Fear. Like, that's what makes Wizards so freaking good, I think. And I think most people would agree.
Fireball is always fun all the time. But,
yeah. So in that case, like, if everybody now has options to, like, debuff somebody or control somebody or slow them or whatever, like, well, they got more powerful. Now, their damage maybe came down, you know what I mean? So in that sense, I do think the martial caster divide is more narrow. That said, my fear, and I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, is that you're still going to be better off with spells than you otherwise would be. Yeah. And maybe that's a no-brainer statement, right? Maybe it's fine to say, look, in a world where magic exists, you're going to be better with magic than without it. I know some people want like more balance than that. But I feel pretty confident that like you're still going to be better getting to extra attack and then finding a way to buff your attacks with spells than you are just staying straight martial class. I could be wrong. And there's probably going to be exceptions. And there's other things to consider than damage. It's not just about the numbers, right? It's not just about the damage. And I get that, right? And if you want to play straight class martial, I think you're going to be better and stronger than you were under the 2014 rules regardless. So, yeah, that was a...
Yeah, I think that actually kind of like ties into one of the questions from chat. Do you feel that martials should tend to be more on the anime side in the new D&D to keep them on par with late game casters bending reality? And I think you basically answered that.
Yeah,
to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, right? And I mean, you know, there are things, you know, especially if we're talking late game, like level 19, level 20. Sure, I probably have to crunch the numbers, but maybe not multi-classing and getting an epic boon, and the epic boons are amazing, and like a really good level 20 capstone feature might be enough to put you above, you know, having spells. I just think that maybe from levels, you know, 6, 7, 8 up to probably 19, you're probably going to be better with spells. So maybe there's a qualifier there. And then, you know, could we do something to make martials even better along the way? I mean, sure, you know. I do kind of wish... I got to be careful what I wish for, but part of me, at least, does kind of wish that Wizards of the Coast would have taken the shackles off even just a little bit more on martial characters and letting them do damage, so that it really almost kind of felt like, look, if you want to be like a good damage dealer, you're going to use weapons. If you want to be a good utility control, maybe multi-target damage dealer, spells.
Right.
Maybe not though. Maybe that would be boring, and maybe then I wouldn't have as many good Gish options, and I'd be sad. But that's kind of my hunch, because I do think that while they've improved straight classing, until you're talking level 19 and 20, generally speaking, marshals are still going to be better multi-classing into spellcasters, which I'm not particularly sad about. I love multi-classing, as you guys know. But then, yeah, again, like, you're still better as a straight class marshal now than you were in 2014. No question. I don't think there's a question. Anyways.
Perfect. From chat, I wonder if encounter balance will make more sense.
What read that again?
So I wonder if encounter balance will make more sense. Like, now saying what you've said about kind of the damage being a little lower overall, does that CR actually match with, the party and things like that? Because it's very hard to balance encounters in the existing version of D&D.
I hope so. And I know that they are planning on, like, making a lot of adjustments with challenge rating. Maybe lowering it on some monsters. I don't think they're raising it on any of them. Maybe I'm wrong. And then even buffing existing monsters, you know what I mean? To just kind of make it a little more challenging, particularly at higher levels. So, yeah. And yeah, I don't know. When I said earlier that I think combat encounters might take longer, I do think that's probably going to be true. I don't know that it's going to be any more difficult. Necessarily, because it might take longer because I'm not doing as much damage, but I'm more effective at reducing the ways that monsters can do damage too. Maybe I'm imposing disadvantage on their attacks, or I'm knocking them prone and slowing them, so now they can't get into range on their turn. You know what I mean? So I think I guess I would say I think damage is probably going to be lower for player characters, and it might be lower from NPCs as well, as a result of them getting, debuffed and controlled by everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, question from the Discord. We'll jump back over there. From What.io. I understand that you probably won't make a best party video due to the immense amount of work involved, which is understandable.
Yeah.
However, if you were to give a brief and not very detailed answer, what does your ideal optimized party look like? It could be made up of 4 of your existing builds, or just 4 classes you believe would form a good party.
All right, I'm going to go without putting hardly any thought into this at all. I'm going to go with like a tanky, beefy type, like a Holy Warrior, maybe, or an Oathbreaker. I still like both of those builds, and I think Paladin is essential for every party. And they can cover so many roles, right? And then I'm going to go with like a good area of effect damage dealer. And let's go with the Starry Night that I just did. That was a Loma, basically, right? Because they're awesome at area of effect damage and can do really good healing when they need to, right? And I still kind of think that, like, the best healers in D&D just heal when they need to.
Yeah, sure.
And so that kind of covers those bases. And then I'm going to go with... you got to go like a Gloomstalker Assassin, right? They're going to fill your rogue niche of like being a stealthy, scouty, lockpicky, trap disarmy, but who also just does a ton of damage. Burst damage especially, right on round 1, right? And then for the last one, I don't know that we need a cleric. We've got healing pretty well covered. We've got area of effect damage covered. So Bladesinger.
Boom.
When all else fails, the answer is Bladesinger. I mean, they're great single target damage. They're probably going to be like your main striker, right? And then they just bring a ton of utility and versatility. So yeah, and they're mostly probably a full wizard depending on how you build them. So you've got that control capability too, if and when you need it, but also good damage. Yeah, I like that. That's a good party. Nice. I want to play that.
Sounds fun. Back to chat. Now that the Assassinate features changed, do you think your Assassin's Creed build has been nerfed? Also, are you excited for DC 20?
Yes and yes. So the Assassin's Creed, first of all, the one that really got nerfed was the stealth bomber, who was an assassin caster, right? Because you only get the bonus damage from assassin now on sneak attack, and they didn't care about sneak attack. They were just there for the auto crits and doing scorching ray. But yeah, I mean, any assassin build that I did where I was like, okay, I'm assuming we have surprise. All of those builds are severely nerfed, right? For the sake of the spreadsheet. That said, in actual gameplay, when you get them out of the lab and into the battlefield, right? It depends. It depends on your table. And I know that I've told this story a million times, but like the one experience that I have of playing an assassin, I think I might have only gotten surprise 2 or 3 times, like over a 2-year campaign, right?
Yeah.
And so that character would have been a lot better off with the new assassin.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because I know that it's not a lot of extra damage, and there's a ton of comments on these assassin builds about how it's not enough damage, and I tend to agree. I mean, I think I said as much in my videos, right? I'm trying to like change my own paradigm and like, you know what I mean, worldview on what a rogue is, to sort of go, hey, maybe, you know, the control and debuffing options that they get make them ultimately more powerful, even though their damage is still subpar compared to other classes.
It's just a lot harder to quantify that.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, there's no question that like doing an extra 1 damage per rogue level once per combat encounter, right, on the first round of combat, potentially twice if you can get a reaction attack on that combat encounter. In that first round, that's just going to be less damage than an auto crit, no question. But again, I think a lot more reliable, and so whether or not it will feel better or worse just depends on how often you are getting surprise as an assassin otherwise, right? So yeah.
All right, over in chat, would any of you two allow the pole arm master reaction attack to be made with a different weapon you are holding in a different hand?
No.
I kind of see in my head as the pole arm is a 2-handed weapon.
Yeah, but it could be a spear,
That's
right?
true.
Or a trident, or a quarterstaff.
I think you would verge on like abusing that bonus action attack by using a different weapon.
Yeah.
Because you could potentially get a lot more damage with that.
Yeah, I don't think I would. I think the intent there is for it to be with the polearm, right?
Yeah.
And I think it feels weird to allow for something else, but yeah, that's me.
What is your thoughts on using true polymorph to transform into an ancient topaz dragon versus using the wish spell? My DM only allows the base use of wish to copy 8th level spells or lower.
Huh.
The wish spell is kind of a hard thing to really integrate into a game. There's very little guidance on wish.
I don't think I would take wish if it were an option to me. Only because it feels like it's potentially game breaking, and that's not very fun. It's powerful. It's the most powerful spell in the game, right? I mean, arguably, you know, people would say take wish and then use wish to do simulacrum. And you create a copy of yourself that has all of your spells, and, you know, eventually they're going to run out of spell slots and die, but that's fine. You know, hopefully by then you can use wish and just bring them back again. And that's probably the most powerful broken thing that you can do as a wizard with access to 9th level spells and wish. But I don't, that to me feels, it's like making a coffee lock or, you know, something. It's like, yeah, it works, but it makes me feel dirty. It's like using conjure animals. when your DM lets
Yeah,
you pick
abuse it.
pick the animals that you summon. It's just like it's powerful, but nah. That's me. So yeah, I would go true polymorph myself. Plus, I think it just is like that's really cool.
Yeah,
in game,
you
you're
can be a
like
dragon. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Going back kind of to that person party, Matt over in the chat says the four person party we were taking to the Curse of Strahd before D&D weekend in a castle is Holy Warrior Tank, Sorkadin, the Gloomstalker Assassin, and a Wizard. That's a solid lineup.
Yeah, for sure. And paladins love Curse of Strahd. I can say that from personal experience.
All right, let's hop over to Discord. We've got Corell. Got a question here. Do you have any funny / heartwarming stories about your children? Something gaming related you'd be comfortable sharing?
That's a good question. So we love to play games in my home. I just one of my favorite memories actually with Nox is there was a Pathfinder adventure card game. It was like a deck building game, and I don't know if it's even published anymore. But it was a great game, and you played it. It was a co-op. It was a cooperative game, and you played against the game, right?
Nice.
And you essentially played against the game deck, and you built your own character. You chose your character, and they got certain items and armor and weapons and abilities and things, and you rolled dice, and you'd go to a location, you'd flip it over, and if it were a monster, you'd have to defeat it until you got to like the bad guy basically, and you killed him. And it was progressive. So they had I want to say it was like six like sessions per level. And there were like 6 levels, so it was like 36 like gaming sessions. Dang. To like beat the whole game, and your character would level up as you would go, and you'd get more and better items and magic items and stuff like that. And Nox and I, over the period of a year or so, year and a half, went through it all, and we beat it. And if you could die and you could lose, but you would just have to start over. Sure. And try and replay that level again. But I mean, each play session would take 45 minutes, and a lot of times I would kind of do a DM light thing, because they'd give you some little prompts on like who the bad guy is and what the scenario is and where you're going and what you're doing. Right. And I would embellish a little bit and be like, oh, like Lem, says, oh no, like I did it, and because Nox was pretty young, he was 10 or 11 or whatever. Yeah. And he loved it, and I loved it, and it was a lot of fun. Other than that, no, all games. Like right now, our favorite game is Wingspan. It's like a bird refuge building game, and it's so fun. Nice. And we just taught my youngest, who just got old enough to like be able to actually play and understand the rules. Sure. And we explained it last Sunday and played, and she loved it. And I'm like, sweet. Perfect. Play some more. That and Everdell. Everdell's my other favorite game right now. I love Everdell. It's so fun. Such a good game. And it's so like adorable. Yes, that is like a weekly game at my house. Pretty much like every Sunday. Do your girls play it? Not yet. I think it's still they're pretty. Yeah, it's pretty complicated. They're still a little young for that. I think probably in the next couple of years I'll start slowly introducing them to that game. But yeah, that one's great. Kind of going along the same lines over in Discord, Zanny says, at what point do you think it's safe to get a child interested in D&D? And if you were going to, how would you go about doing it? I'm hoping to get my own kid into D&D at some point in their lives. That's a tough question for me to answer, because I have not been successful in doing that yet. I've played D&D with my oldest a couple of times, and it's just didn't really take. He enjoyed it, but he didn't love it like I did, and do. And then my daughters have not expressed any interest at all. So yeah, that's hard to say. And again, it also depends a lot on what you're comfortable with your kids being exposed to. You know what I mean? Sure. When I grew up, my dad found out that I was playing D&D, and he was like, isn't that the devil worshipping game? And I'm like, no, Dad, it's not devil worshipping. Well, are you summoning demons and stuff? And I'm thinking in my head, well, no, like none of us are like warlocks. Well, warlocks didn't exist at the time, but none of us are wizards that have any sort of like demon summoning spells. So I'm like, no, we don't do that ever, you know? And he's like, okay, well, if you ever start doing any demon summoning, then I don't want you to play anymore. And I'm like, all right. So we never summoned any demons.
Like along the lines of like a Ouija board in most parents' eyes.
Yeah. So, you know, are you okay with your kids being exposed to violence and like enacting violence on, you know, other creatures? I mean, is there any like sexy times going on in your game, and is that sensitive for you, you know, and your children? That's really tough. That said, I would think that you could do, I mean, especially if you get into, like, you could do like a Humblewood campaign setting, right? Or something like it, where everybody's a cute, adorable squirrel or a bunny rabbit, and make, you know, and have more puzzles and exploration and role play than you do combat. And maybe, you know, if you're concerned about the violence, you know, everybody just gets knocked out or goes to jail, you know what I mean? Yeah. So you could definitely temper it to whatever you're comfortable with your kids experiencing. And in that case, 5 years old, right? I mean,
I think I started having my girls play just kind of, we don't have like a regular game going. We just play every once in a while. I think they were, maybe 5 or 6 when we started. And it was like, I'm the princess of the unicorns. I'm like, that's great. That's a good character. Yeah. Here's a ranger, and you're going to do the, there you go. You roll your dice and you add this, and just like very simple. Simple. And then like, I didn't even come up with a story. It was like, I just kind of let them tell the story, and they'd be like, and these goblins come out. Oh no, you got to roll your dice. And just very like basic level. And I guess it just depends on your kid's age and again, what you said. How comfortable you are. But I think there's ways you can get your kids into it early. But it's hard getting it to take.
I like the idea of letting them kind of lead a little bit with the storytelling.
Yeah, it's a hands off for you. It's like you don't have to prepare this campaign. You're just like, hey, where do you go? And they're like, oh, I woke up and I'm sad, so I'm going to the pond. And you're like, there's a pond. Yeah, it's right over there. You just walk over. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, kids are already so great at like make believe.
Exactly.
So just let them run with it.
Okay, over in the chat. Oh boy, this one might be a hot take. Divine Smite or Reckless Attack? If you had to pick.
The 2014 version or the 2024 version? I can say that because Wizards of the Coast has already talked about the change to Divine Smite. Reckless Attack. Well, see, it just depends. Right? Because it's like, am I a strength-based character? Then it's Reckless Attack. Otherwise, no. So, yeah, because there are so many builds that I love doing that are not strength-based characters, right? And so then Reckless Attack isn't even an option. Yeah. But, like, so let's say we are a Bardadin. We're a Paladin Barbarian, right? So we're the Holy Warrior, and we have to choose between Divine Smite and Reckless Attack. Reckless Attack, yeah. Just because, even if it's the 2014 version of Divine Smite, because Divine Smite's a limited resource, and it's good, but I mean, 2d8 or 3d8 or 4d8, once. I mean, they don't have a lot of spell slots. It's awesome on a crit. But yeah, I tend to go for things that are like old reliable rather than, expendable resources. So yeah,
there you go.
I'm taking Reckless Attack.
You heard it here first. Reckless Attack is better than anything in the game.
I mean, I might be persuaded of that argument. I don't know. It's really good. But again, only for certain characters, right? So it would be it would be the best thing in the game if it were usable for any melee attack or something, right? But since it's potentially so limited, then that kind of reins it in. All
right, so it's 4:03. We want to do one more?
We're over. Oh, yeah.
Go one more question. We're going to take this one from the chat. From Sour Dragon. I'm at work currently, so I'll catch up with the stream at the end of my shift. My question of great importance, if you can, is what foods and dishes do you think suit each class, and why?
That's a long question. We don't have time for that.
Go top of the mind.
I mean,
they list barbarian equals spicy curry. Question mark?
No.
Barbarian is steak and potatoes.
Yeah, barbarian's like a ham hock, like on the bone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Fighter is like steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
Oh boy, artificer.
They just eat oil and gears and nails.
They're, I don't even know, dude. Cleric is like no, sorry. Monk is like, universe juice and dew.
Lambest bread.
Yeah. Ranger is like whatever they can forage, so berries and roots.
Yep.
An assassin, or sorry, a rogue. A rogue is like something expensive. Do you know what I mean?
They pilfer it
yeah,
and then
exactly.
went and paid for it later. Yeah.
Exactly.
They're like
some fine
fancy
dining
wines
meal.
and,
yeah, there you go. Cleric is like bread and
prayers
and broth. Yeah, just like some broth. A sorcerer is something extravagant and elaborate. That's like spicy, very flavorful. A wizard. What's a wizard?
I think the wizard is the one that forgot to eat because they were so buried in their books reading.
They're just like whatever,
whatever's
on
this?
hand.
Yeah.
There you go. And then a warlock is what's a warlock? Something dark.
Like squid ink ice cream.
Yeah. Or okay, that works. And then what did we miss? Paladin. And Bard. Oh, Bard. Bard is even more than the sorcerer. Bard is like a smorgasbord of like everything.
It's a charcuterie.
They've got Thai food. They've got ramen. They've got like your spicy curry.
Yeah.
They've got everything. And then a paladin. Oh, what's a paladin? A paladin is like hearty, but oh man.
Paladin.
It can't be steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
It's like
stew.
Yeah.
Just a good hearty soup.
It's got to be, but with something light at the end.
That's true.
Creme brulee or something.
This is a tough question, actually.
I think there's a D&D. Isn't there a D&D cookbook?
There is. I have it. I flipped through it like once, and I've never cooked anything from it. I'm terrible.
You should know
that. I should know. Chat says artificers eat tacos. I will not take any questions. Wizards are surrounded by half-eaten takeout. A bard is tapas. Stale bread for the warlock.
Yeah.
Lancashire hot pot followed by lemon sorbet. I think that's for
the paladin.
And that
works. All right. Thanks, you guys, for being here and for all of your support. You guys are the best. I love you. And this really is like my favorite day of the month. This is just fun.
Good time.
I love interacting with you guys, and thanks for all your questions. And if we didn't get to any, were there any Discord ones?
There's a couple we didn't get to this time.
We'll try and get to them next time.
They are top of the list for next time.
Yeah, and keep submitting those questions. And yeah, I guess
go do something fun today. It's Friday.
Enjoy yourself. Happy Friday, and we'll see you again soon. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.